The FAA drone industry years ago. The reason why the Chinese are winning in the drone is because the FAA basically made drones illegal in the U.S. Years ago. So like the FAA has been a big problem. So legally, you cannot fly a drone in the U.S. That is beyond line of sight.
Wow.
Which means if you're a U.S. drone manufacturer, you have to build a system that enforces that regulation.
So
but if you're a
have
Chinese,
to handicap your ability.
Yes. So either the U.S. drone needs to either not fly beyond line of sight, which is not very useful, right?
Right.
Or it needs to somehow validate. It only have customers that have pilot's licenses. China, there's no such restrictions, and every single one of them can be taken over by China and used for whatever they want.
Oh my God!
Anytime they want.
Right.
And the Chinese, because we run a more open economy, the Chinese drones you can just buy in the U.S. and use however you want. Technically, as the user of the drone, you're out of compliance with the law, but they ignore that part. They just punish the American drone makers.
Wow!
And that's why Chinese own the drone market, and that's why 90% of the drones used by the U.S. military and by U.S. police are Chinese-made drones. Which, again...
That sounds like a terrible security risk.
Is a very bad idea because every Chinese drone is both a potential surveillance platform and a...
Oh, criminy.
Yes.
Well, I've seen the advancements in Chinese drones, in particular, the choreographed dances that they do in the sky, where they had... Did you see the dragon one?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
See if you can find that, Jamie. Chinese dragon drone display. It's like one of the largest ones they ever did.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how much more advanced they are.
Yeah, and I will tell you, the Biden administration had zero interest in addressing this, or worse than zero. I would say absolute contempt for the idea of a U.S. drone industry. Yeah.
So let's watch this thing. See if we can go full screen on that. This is just a grid in the sky. Look at this. They're flying up together.
Yeah.
They did one that was at night, Jamie, because they were all lit up.
Video, it's just full.
Oh, okay.
I can skip ahead.
So imagine those with guns.
Jesus Christ.
Coming at you, right?
Well, we get to see some of that in Ukraine.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, we've seen those suicide drones. Look at this.
Yeah.
That dragon in the sky is drones that are all lit up. I mean, that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It even has a puff of fire coming out of its mouth.
Yeah.
This is insane.
Correct. Yes. Look, DoD runs in these. Soldiers in the field, it's very common. Normal grunt soldiers in the field carry drones in their backpacks because they want to be able to see what's around the building or up on the roof.
Yeah, and these are Chinese-made drones.
And every single one of them can be taken over by China and used for whatever they want.
Oh my God!
Anytime they want.
Is the Trump administration on this?
They're I don't know what they'll do. It's somewhere in the priority order of the things that they're dealing. But they are well aware of this. And
well,
it's the kind of thing I would hope that would get some attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this brings us back to the UAP thing, because if that's what we're seeing super sophisticated Chinese drones that operate on some novel propulsion system.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah.
And that could be because they put ridiculous regulations on drone manufacturers in America.
Yeah, that's right.
There is, over the skies of the world, the most extraordinary display of something, objects in our skies, the frequency of which I've never had reported to me to such an extent before. It's off the charts. It's absolutely amazing to be receiving reports, as I am hourly, minute by minute, from people in countries all over the world. Now, why do I say drone-like craft? Well, I only say that because intelligence community sources have been in my ear for some time, assuring me that these are not aliens, they're not unidentified anomalous phenomena. They are reportedly, according to intelligence insiders, known foreign adversarial drones. They must be highly advanced drones based on what I'm hearing, but the claim is that they are foreign adversarial nation drones. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily believe everything I'm told by members of the intelligence community, and I think we're entitled to be skeptical in this case. Not least because we know from intercepted military communications, before they were digitised and encrypted when they realised their comms were being monitored, some of the clever skywatchers around RAF bases in the United Kingdom picked up on the fact that at least one pilot was referring to UAPs, not drones. So if the pilots themselves that are being sent up to intercept these objects perceive them as unidentified anomalous phenomena, not drones, what aren't we being told? And that's the bigger issue here. As Ryan Graves from Americans for a Safe Aerospace has told us repeatedly, he's the former pilot who was involved in the extraordinary spate of sightings off the East Coast involving deployments in training exercises where they witnessed weird anomalous objects. He's been warning for a while that we need to know for sure that our aerospace is safe. And at the moment, the US government, quite transparently, and neither can the British government, nor my country, the Australian government, give that assurance in the face of what we are seeing in our skies. For 2 weeks plus now, I think it's up to 16, 17 days, there have been sightings of craft of some kind. Some of them apparently do have an audio signature that is consistent with some kind of propeller or helicopter blade. They're not jet turbine, but they are hovering in some cases for many, many hours at an end, basically continuing to hover over very sensitive military facilities with apparent impunity. Now, whatever you say about whether these are UAPs or drones, that's an issue. That's a national security concern. And some of the people in the national security complex would basically say that's because until we know what they are, they are by definition. And so, whilst people often get accused of pushing a narrative about unidentified objects, that's what they're talking about here. And I think that's the big issue here that a lot of people, including most of the mainstream media, are missing. Let's compare what happened in February last year, in 2023. One Chinese spy balloon set the entire US media and the Congress into hysterics. They went off their rocker with concern about this unwarranted intrusion into American aerospace. And we still don't know what the remaining 3 objects were that were shown over, I think there was Alaska, then there was the Yukon, and then there were 2 parts of the United States, the main continental United States. But there's still a mystery over 3 of those objects. What the hell were they? We still don't know. Has the media been inquisitive about it? Not at all. That's the issue here. Why was there a hullabaloo and a big alert and concern about those objects and not these current objects that are still hovering with impunity over some of the most sensitive military facilities on the planet? And right now, we are teetering, sadly, on the edge of a third world war. It's not an overstatement to say that we are in very dangerous times, and I suspect that this is the real backdrop to why we're not being told what's going on. I think the US knows full well what these objects are, be they foreign adversary drones or UAPs. I still think that's a possibility. But if it is a foreign adversary drone, and they're operating with impunity over our airspace, over sensitive military facilities, not only is that a national security concern, for the United States and for the United Kingdom to directly accuse, say, Russia or China, which I'm told is more likely, to say that China has been deploying drones over sensitive British air bases is tantamount to accusing China of an act of war. And that's why we don't want to identify, that's what I'm being told at least, that's why we don't want to identify the foreign adversary nation that we suspect is involved in this. Some people are suggesting it's Russian, but my friends from Polish intelligence tell me they doubt the Russians have anything like this kind of drone technology, which appears to be able to intercept to avoid intercepting jet fighters. There's a great image, I honestly can't vouch for its authenticity, but there's a great video of what is alleged by one of the sky watchers to be an F-16 fighter approaching one of these luminous orbs at high altitude, and you see the orb zoom off in the face of the advancing F-16 jet. So are these drones, if they are drones, really faster than F-16 jets? Because if that's the case, it means there's a genuine issue of national security concern here, because these objects don't appear to have the kind of propulsion systems we're used to for drones, and they seem to be displaying full lights. They're showing, in many cases, what some people describe as navigation lights, but which one source of mine is suggesting might in fact be ISR sensors, perhaps some kind of intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance sensor that's being used over these sensitive bases? Is it a coincidence that just a few months ago we were told that the United States would be forward deploying nuclear weapons because of the heightening tensions with Russia into some of these UK bases? Is that why a potential foreign adversary, or maybe something stranger, something more anomalous, is now taking a close interest in these bases? We simply don't know, but I can tell you the conspicuous thing is the absence of any comment by either the United States or the British Royal Air Force. It's like they've decided to clam up. And that's concerning. There are reports, for example, that the SAS, the Special Air Service, and the Special Boat Service, two of Britain's most elite military regiments, have been deployed around some of these bases to try and capture the suspected criminal enterprises that are launching these drones from adjacent forests. But if that's the case, why haven't we caught any? And add to that what we're seeing at the moment is a spate of drone sightings, not just in the United Kingdom, or supposed drone sightings. We're seeing anomalous objects, strange unidentified objects, over countries all over the world. My inbox has exploded in the last few days. I'm getting messages from Russia, Kazakhstan, China, across Southeast Asia, Japan, where people are reporting to me sightings of anomalous, strange objects that the governments are calling drones in some cases, but which are not explainable as known drones. And so the big issue is, what the hell are they? And we just simply don't know. That's a concern. Here's one, for example. We were told that the British aircraft carrier HMS Elizabeth in Germany, on the 22nd of November, there was a security incident at the port of Hamburg when the Queen Elizabeth was docked under heavy protection. The German armed forces had a secure military zone around the vessel with Homeland Security forces, and they reported a suspicious sighting of a 1.5 metre by 1.5 metre reconnaissance drone hovering over the 284 metre long aircraft carrier. They confirmed the incident, the Bundeswehr, and identified the drone as likely engaged in espionage activities. They deployed, and this is the crucial thing, they deployed what's called HP-47 jamming equipment, capable of emitting signals to disrupt and neutralize drones by forcing them to either land or return to their operators. But that attempt to intercept the drone was unsuccessful. So the bottom line is, whoever it is that's operating these craft, these objects, over very sensitive military facilities, not just in the UK, but also clearly in Europe, Germany, and in multiple other countries around the world, including continuing reports in the continental USA. The people that are doing this are not being caught. They're operating with obvious impunity. And moreover, the technology that they are using is not susceptible to the known drone interdiction technology, which normally involves firing a signal at the craft and intercepting the signal that disrupts the operator's control of that drone. One thing that I am told is that we cannot use broad spectrum high pulse microwave weapons on these objects over sensitive military airspace. And that's because obviously there are fighter aircraft and other aircraft operating in the vicinity. One thing I know, and interestingly enough, I know this from people who tell me that HPMs, these high pulse microwaves, have been used against known non-human technology. One of the risks in deploying these weapons is that if you fire them in the vicinity of a UAP, you knock out every aircraft in the vicinity. And so you can't do that over sensitive military airspace when you've got your own fighters in the air. But that doesn't explain a lot to me, because I know, for example, there's a company that's just set up, it's a US company called Anduril, Anduril, and they have fantastic anti-drone technology, including something called the Fury, which, if you look on their website, demonstrates a capacity to, at extremely high speed, knock out individual drones or UASs that are intercepted inside sensitive military airspace. That's what these are purpose-built for. Your governments and mine have funded these anti-drone, anti-US operations at a cost of many hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars over the last few years, and I think we're entitled to ask, why the hell isn't it working? If these so-called drones are attempted to be being intercepted by the Americans and or the British, and we know that the British Army has deployed special elite units that are meant to be involved in counter-drone efforts, why haven't we seen one brought down? There is, I admit, one report by a local woman that says that she's aware that a drone was brought down, I think over RAF Lakenheath, RAF-based Lakenheath. But if that's the case, we've seen no official confirmation of that. And it could very well be that the reason why they're not confirming it is because they don't want to essentially put themselves in a declaration of war with whatever the foreign nation is that was responsible for deploying this technology. Because the moment that you do identify that foreign adversary nation, you are essentially declaring that they have committed an act of war against your nation. And with national sensitivities the way they are at the moment, the last thing I think either Britain or the US want to do is precipitate any kind of confrontation with Russia or China. Could it be, perhaps, that China has developed technologies that are far in advance of what the Russians have, and that what they are trying to do is provoke a conflict between the Russians and the Western world? Is that possible? Would they do such a dastardly thing? Certainly it's being suggested to me that these drones, if that's what they are more likely Chinese than Russian. And apparently we know this because of the very distinct audio signatures on these purported craft. Add to that the fact that, don't forget, just a few weeks ago, there was a very extraordinary incident where a Chinese vessel, which is almost certainly linked to the PLA, the Chinese army, was involved in dropping its anchor and dragging its anchor and snagging and severing very important internet cables in and around Scandinavia. Now, that incident still is largely unreported. It's an effective act of war by what we suspect is a Chinese army vessel, controlled at least by one crew member who is Russian. Why has there not been any attempt to board that boat? And I suspect the answer is because we don't want to provoke international tensions any more than they are at the moment. So let's put the drone issue to one side for a moment. Let's not ignore the fact that there clearly is still, separately from the drone issue, there have been for many months now, and we've reported on this in Reality Check, anomalous objects clearly identified as anomalous by pilots and military personnel operating over very sensitive military facilities, particularly in the United States. And one of the reports that we did was reports of anomalous objects being seen by locals over Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. And the Air Force, of course, has persisted in maintaining that these are drones. But not one shred of evidence has been presented to supply any proof at all that these are drones. In fact, the Pentagon has conspicuously failed to provide any proof at all to back up its claim that these objects are drones. You might recall a few weeks ago I did an interview with the Tedesco brothers, John and Jerry Tedesco, who do a lot of research off Long Island, and they are, I think, probably foremost as technical experts in an understanding of anomalous objects that are being seen on very sensitive air routes in and out of JFK Airport coming into New York. And they're aware of a lot of the orbs that are now being seen in and around New Jersey, off the Long Island coast, and they continue to maintain that these objects are not drones. They do not comply. They're not consistent with any known drone technology. They do move in anomalous ways, and what they're seeing and recording on their hyperspectral cameras and their numerous other sensor systems that they've paid for themselves, they're not US government funded, they are raising a very serious question. And I note, as this goes to air, it's just been reported on NBC that the objects are again being seen over New Jersey this evening. And that's very interesting because the FBI is now involved. The FBI has approached John and Jerry Tedesco, and I know that they are taking an interest in the New Jersey sightings as well. There are some very sensitive homes under New Jersey, including, I think, one associated with the incoming president. I wonder if that's just a coincidence. Is somebody sending a message? Or something sending a message? We simply don't know because our governments aren't telling us, and more importantly, our media is not curious enough to continue asking the question. And that's the issue. The issue, yet again, is the failure of much of the mainstream media to question the drone assertion. If the Pentagon spokesperson gets up and says that these are drones being seen over US and UK and other countries' very sensitive military facilities, over the Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier in a dock in Hamburg in Germany, that's a national security. That's a bigger than any kind of balloon being seen over the continental USA in February 2023, as we know. So why isn't it being aggressively reported and investigated by the media? Well, because much of the media allows itself to be tamely led by the nose by their intelligence sources. They don't want to burn their sources who are giving them cozy little stories about Ukraine, about Russia, and they're allowing themselves actively to be misled. The same organisations that misreported on COVID and misreported on the Iraq War and have misreported on intelligence issues for much of the last 60 or 70 years. It's time for the public to start asking questions itself, to start doing our own research, our own independent investigation. And to that effect, I want to commend some work done by an organisation called Enigma Labs, with whom I had a very brief flirting association. I got to know them really well in their very early days, but they've done some great work. They've been investigating the orbs and spheres that have been seen over the continental USA, and they made a point of mentioning that in Arrow's November report, they showed that orbs and spheres are frequently reported, with most sightings occurring between 15,000 to 25,000 feet. And what they went on to report that they've been speaking regularly with fighter pilots, active service fighter pilots at US Air Force bases. And these men and women are telling Enigma, anecdotally, that the sightings of these metallic looking spheres in particular are concerningly still continuing. Often multiple times a day they're appearing when they're flying and doing training exercises. They're saying, again consistent with what Arrow told the Pentagon and told Congress, they're appearing between 24,000 and 28,000 feet, which is a lot higher than most commercial drones. If this is a foreign adversary actor, it's using technology far beyond what we know commercial drones are capable of. Now, we know that those kind of long-range, long-distance drones exist because the US has been using such autonomous drones for a very long time in warfare. But it does raise the possibility or probability, if this is a foreign adversary, that these are extremely grave incursions. But it gets more interesting in what Enigma reveals. They did an analysis on these spheres and orbs to see what they could learn, and they discovered that there's been an incredible number, a total of 6,226 total orb or sphere sightings were submitted to the Enigma Skywatching Network between December 2022 to September 2024. So that's just under 2 years. 6,226. And when they ruled out ones that were a little bit more uncertain, there were 4,467 approved orb sightings that they were able to confirm were genuine sightings. But this is the good part. When they drilled down further, they found 322 metallic orb sightings. They were metallic, metal or silver orbs. Now, Reality Check fans will recall that we've taken a very, very close interest in these metallic orbs. I've reported on a guy in Texas who claims that he has a silver sphere, which he has seen operating and moving under its own steam. And I've had, since then, a ridiculous number of people contact me from all over the world who tell me that they've been seeing metallic spheres across Europe, Eastern Europe, Africa, India, Australia, and a lot of the continental USA. But have a listen to some of this more information from Enigma, because there's been a lot of metallic spheres reported by military pilots adjacent to or over very, very sensitive continental USA military bases. So at the Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base Fort Worth, Enigma reports on the 1st of August 2023, a metallic sphere was seen flying low, then disappeared into the sky. Near Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington State in May 2023, a silver grey sphere flying at low altitude. July 2024, a 3-foot-high shiny oval. January 2024, a silver ball following a plane. Several sightings also near Eglin Air Force Base, which we've reported on, in Florida, June the 4th, 2024. Silent silver orbs in formation. And again, June 12th, silent silver craft appears after a flash. Now, John and Jerry Tedesco, who we reported on from Long Island, they got an intriguing image of what looks like an orb literally tailing a commercial aircraft as it either exited or entered JFK Airport on the approaches to New York. This is a concern. These are objects operating inside highly sensitive airspace. God help us if there's a collision involving one of these objects and a commercial or military aircraft. That's why this is an issue. That's why Ryan Graves' Americans for a Safe Aerospace is such an important initiative. And that's why civilian and military pilots need to stop worrying about the stigma and start reporting these objects more. So it's to be applauded, frankly, that Enigma's getting reports like these. And I'd certainly like to hear from anyone who's seeing these metallic orbs in particular. They're very interesting, because they have no visible means of propulsion. They don't display a heat signature showing either a propeller or a jet turbine. Nobody can see a seam on them. Nobody can explain how these things propel themselves, but multiple people are seeing them in our skies. Why do we continue to ignore this as a national security issue? We jump up and down and get hysterical about Chinese balloons entering American aerospace in February 2023, but we don't talk about metallic spheres. Why is the media allowing itself to be so controlled and gagged? Why doesn't somebody at the White House briefings for the president or the Pentagon briefings develop a spine or a new pair and actually start asking questions? Well, hang on a moment. What is all this? What are these drones? If you say these are drones, why do you say they are drones? What evidence have you got they are drones? If these are metallic orbs or spheres being seen by your pilots, and if you think that's nonsense, why are you putting pilots in charge of $100 million aircraft if you think they're lunatics? This is the issue. It's time for the media to start asking seriously aggressive and hard questions, because we are being misled and lied to. That's the issue. So please keep your sightings coming in. I am overwhelmed. I'm very, very interested to hear more, and I can tell you there's something in this, but at the moment I'm not ruling out the likelihood that these are foreign adversarial drones that have developed some kind of advanced technology that is able to operate with impunity over some of the most sensitive airspace in the world. If that's the case, it's a huge concern. It's actually, frankly, it's a bigger concern if it's Russia or China than it is if it's friendly aliens. Because if it was aliens, and if they were malevolent or ill-disposed, I'm pretty sure they could have wiped us out a while back.